So, Judge, what do you think about the new theater room?
It looks pretty good, Mr. Code.
Now we can watch the Buckball Championships on the big screen, or the next Unworld Tournament coming up soon.
Amazing. So, how many channels do we get?
Let's allow the TV to answer that.
Over 9,000!
You know, I really do hate you sometimes.
I'm used to it. Nothing can really surprise or break me anymore.
Well then, I'll be in my quarters. Oh, and by the way, don't go to channel 69. You won't like what you see.
Oh, please, Judge. I already told you, nothing can surprise me. I am completely unbreakable and...
We now return to our Triple X feature. Birds of a feather, fuck together.
Mind bleach, please. Oh. It's certainly been a while, but we're finally returning to the Legends of Magic series. In the first 6 issues, we covered the individual Pillars of Equestria's deeds of heroism, but now it's time to get the band together, as the Sirens have taken over and dominated the minds of Stygian's town. What follows over the next several issues is the young scholar globetrotting to bring the legendary heroes together, and much like in the vein of Dragon Age Origins, every location he travels to has a problem that needs solving before the pillar can leave. So because of that pattern and for the sake of efficiency, I'm going to cruise through these adventures, just hitting the highlights and character development, saving Stygian for last. One of the greatest strengths in the second half of this series is seeing the pillars interact with each other. There's tons of great chemistry as the group slowly grows, so let's start off with Rockhoof, who not only has the most exposure, but actually becomes a mentor figure for Stygian, which I'll come back to later. He still possesses his usual macho bravado we've seen previously, which does provide a lot of the ensuing comics humor, watching him trying to overcome various obstacles like the Colossus of a Stallion being held back by a simple glass door, or his bluntness in talking with various creatures. Definitely one of the most entertaining characters on this journey, but he's still a humble warrior with enough battle logic to accomplish his goals, like him essentially halting a war between the dragons and Pegasi, encouraging Mage Meadowbrook to communicate with said dragons, and seeking a peaceful solution akin to his experience in the Legends of Magic #2. Nice callback. But before we get to our band's healer, can I say that Captain Steela is one of the most badass supporting characters, not just in Legends of Magic series, but in all of MLP? Seriously, she needs her own comic. A stern but focused mare who can make the stallions quiver in fear, yet is level-headed enough she can organize plans and troops in quick fashion. Plus she takes on 3 giant lumber bears by herself, and there's also her wicked Scar. Definitely one of my favorite characters from this whole series. Anyway, on to Meadowbrook, who is actually one of the standout characters in the latter half of the series. Now, we've seen her affinity for alchemy and expertise with nature and plants and wealth of information, and her personal Legends of Magic issue. But here we take it up a notch. We do expand on the mare, revealing more of her inner Fluttershy, showing her communication skills with animals, and displaying her deductive reasoning skills like discovering the hostile animals in her swamp or discovering the signs of diseased dragons on a battlefield. The ensuing battle scene in her place was fun, having some creative and funny moments like the buff bunnies attacking the trio was hilarious imagery. I especially love the scene of Mage informing Stygian about her various potions including fire and acid, but not to use those because it's macabre, which says something about her personality in that it really shows how distant she is from society norms, living in the middle of a swamp, which accounts for her quirky nature with that odd passive-aggressive statement. Previously, we've seen her ninja combat abilities, of which we get to see more of, but I love how it's revealed she actually loves fighting, and not just for defense, diving right into combat, displaying more of her bravery and showing that she can hang with the boys in the fight. Next up is our Pegasus Guard Flash Sentry, Flash Magnus. Though it was a little disappointing that he didn't solve his own dilemma. However, I did notice something rather interesting about his character's direction. Sure, he's got the bravery, charisma, and cockiness we've seen previously, but he seems to be more of a foil for Stygian, believing their strength and numbers are already enough to quell the Sirens. Now, while this is another good minor roadblock for Stygian's character having and managing such a diverse team, it's kind of more of the same that we saw from Flash in Legends of Magic #4, the young idealistic hero rushing in to save others. Also, is it just me, or am I sensing a little bit of nationalism from our Pegasus friend? Moving on, he does actively participate in the ensuing battles, including the zombie fight, which is the first skirmish that really shows off the group's battle chemistry, seeing everyone analyzing, planning, and attacking, demonstrating their organizational combat prowess. Anyway, it's a short but fun battle also introducing the Pink Pegasus. Now, I already talked about the disconnect between Somnambula's character from her personal issue and Shadowplay. That comic did give her a lot more personality than in the episode, and we get to see more of her eccentric mannerisms. Previously, we've established the bravery our element of hope exhibited as she literally entered the belly of the beast. However, in the latter half of the comics, we actually expand on this concept in that her cheerful attitude not only inspires ponies to have faith in survival, but we see the direct effects of her encouragement bringing out the best of every pony's ideas. Again, going back to their plans to defeat the zombies, she takes the others' ideas and combines them, leading to the ultimate solution, revealing just a little more of her concealed genius. Her unconventional one-dimensional nature and naivete also instills a lot of humor, like misconstruing Rocco's failure to bug a door open. It's that optimism and unwavering beacon of hope that makes her unpredictable and fun. Next, the group picks up the kinda wise Miss Main. This is one of the only comics I have a problem with in the second half of the series. In the other comics, the pacing is consistent with meeting every hero and slowly developing a stronger bond as with each scenario they come across. Here, the group is locked out of the greenhouse and eventually beset by Miss Main's numerous plants. While it is played for comedic effect with a decent amount of comedy, you can't help but not quell that niggling question in the back of your mind: if they can't break into a greenhouse and stop a bunch of raging plants, what chance do they have to stand up against the Sirens? Now, I didn't have a problem with the whole Animal and Buff Bunny attack at Mage's place because the group was smaller and caught off guard using what resources they had. Yet Rockhoof and Flash can't smash open a glass window. Not a major problem, mind you, but definitely a questionable story element. But onto Miss Main herself actually brings a lot of emotion, not just in seeing the mayor go from calm and genial to stern and demanding, which was funny with her yelling at the plants, but like Mage, we reveal more about her connection to nature. So much so that not only can she understand the emotions of individual flora and fauna, but quite literally through the grapevine she can sense the winds of change in Equestria. We saw a bit of that in her personal issue of dealing with the initial location of the Two Sisters Castle and its encroachment on the homes of animals. When the team enters the Mirror Realm, she can sense the corruption in the land, which is a fascinating character trait as it makes her a very valuable asset to the team, being able to read the surrounding environment and its dangers, which then leads us to our final member, Star Swirl the Bearded. The most interesting aspect we see from the old unicorn is just how starstruck he is. While not to the degree of Twilight squeeing over him, the stallion is absolutely enamored by the sight of these legendary heroes before him, which again provides some funny reactions, but more interesting is how he acts as a foil for Stygian. He develops tunnel vision to the degree that instead of him learning from the team about their various misadventures and bonds of friendship that brought them together, he primarily focuses on their old individual exploits, which leads back into the established plot point of him not understanding friendship, ultimately leading to his rash methodology of dealing with the Dazzlings. Yet this time, amongst all others, it comes off as an organic rationale to his character. In the Equestria Girls movie, his choice to banish the Sirens to another dimension came off as him just wanting to save Equestria, which were good for the movie, while Fiendship number 3 made him look like an incompetent jackass. Here again, obviously, he wants to save Equestria, but this is the first time we've really dove into his psyche over the event with his Dr. House approach.
People don't change.
Because he separated himself from the other Pillars Council, he only sees their gathered band as just a matchup of physical and magical strength from them defeating dragons, giant snakes, and volcanoes, just to name a few. Combine this narrow-minded thinking along with him not understanding the magic of friendship, he possesses a rather black and white view of the world, and it makes sense for him to see the Dazzlings as just pure evil and beyond saving. And you can understand how he could make such a decision to remove the Sirens to a non-magically inclined world, preferring the more successful chance of strength, then counting on the raw power he can't even begin to fathom, that being friendship. Overall, he feels like a much more fleshed out character, exhibiting great magical prowess, possessing years of knowledge, a thirst for adventure, but displays flaws from his eccentricities to his narrow-minded thinking that make him a more relatable character overall. Finally, we come to the face-off, the Dazzlings and the Pillars of Equestria, the culmination of the group's relationship and their best performances reign as they quell the dominated townsfolk and the Sirens themselves. My only complaint is that we've been building up this battle for about 6 issues, and the entire thing lasts about 4 pages. Kind of disappointing, but I can understand why it was short, being that we've already seen the fight and shadow play, and they did keep the focus where it matters in this series, that being Stygian. Alright guys, we're in the home stretch now, but before we get to Stygian, let's talk about our teenage princesses who are absolutely entertaining. Though they're not in the comics for long, they do leave a decent impression in the humor department, especially driving Star Swirl up the wall for worrying about his safety, still showing their adolescence teasing him and each other, but the story does have enough development for them since the incident in the first issue. There's the minor visual cues, of course, such as Celestia's mane having more color and looking slightly more ethereal. Both are slightly taller, but you could tell that after their first encounter with the Mirror Realm, they do care more about each other. Luna, the younger sister, even dives in to try to save Celestia, not caring for her own safety. Now, finally, after much discussion on the Pillars of Equestria, let's go to our lead protagonist, the one who brought them all together, the scholar Stygian. A major theme prevalent in his journey is heroism, more specifically how he doesn't see himself as one and constantly expresses aversion to that label. While the stallion isn't a hero in the sense of a typical shining knight comes in to save the princesses and slay the dragon, he does possess the traits of one still. A hero defined has many definitions ranging from godlike warrior to a bread roll making hero sandwich. He doesn't possess extraordinary powers and his body isn't comprised of wheat, but he does express numerous acts of bravery and ability on top of being overly humble. He's a scrawny little guy, but instead of just running and hiding in a hole somewhere, he circumnavigates the roads of Equestria and counting its various dangers and creatures and obstacles to gather these heroes, all in the name of saving his townsfolk. Though where he lacks in physical and magical effectiveness, his strength lies with his high wisdom modifier, whereas most of his friends tend to deal with the situations head on, he's able to quickly assess a problem and organize his companions, such as diverting the river at Rock Coast Village or trying to break into Miss Main's greenhouse. He knows the Pillar's stories, their personalities, strengths, and weaknesses. Plus, we know he's a scholar who's meticulous in detail, as we've seen in his introductory scene. For having no battlefield experience, he's got exemplary leadership skills. This is what makes Stygian such an interesting protagonist. He's lived a sheltered life, suddenly thrust into a quest for the future of his town, growing in knowledge from every companion that joins, and becoming more open with others, wearing down his timid demeanor. He is the spark, the progenitor of the magic of friendship for the original main six, the underlying raw power that can stop the most powerful of foes, which ties back to how Star Swirl inadvertently becomes a foil for Stygian as discussed earlier. The next most prevalent element in the story goes back to what I brought up earlier, that being Rockhoof as the young stallion's mentor. Like everyone else, they acknowledge his accomplishments and him being the beacon of light that brought them all together, but it's these two who really have the greatest bond, sharing stories, knowledge, and teaming up constantly. By the end, it becomes kind of a moral guide for Stygian. Like when he goes off on Star Swirl, Rockhoof sees that there's a potential for a problem that can get out of Hoof and is able to counsel him. Yet at the same time, both rightfully confide in each other, doubting Star Swirl's methods, knowing that there's probably a better way than his old methods, overall showing just how strong their friendship is. Thus, we come to the final seed and set up for Shadowplay, Stygian's downfall. Let's rewind a minute. In the beginning, he's a humble pony in a small town, simply on a quest to save his town. Fame and glory nowhere plaguing his thoughts. During the globetrotting, look at the composition of these panels and how he's side by side or leading every pony, showing how equal he is to the heroes. After the circle is complete and Star Swirl takes over, notice he's now in the back. Admittedly so, as he knows to let the more stronger and experienced heroes take over, and pretty much acknowledges his role in this adventure is essentially done, once again repeating his mantra of I am not a hero, compounded by the fact that the poor guy basically gives him the Star Swirl's influence in how to deal with the Sirens, and finally he's left out of the battle entirely. And this look perfectly summarizes his internal conflict with sorrow, regret, and envy over this whole journey, and his position with his friends. Thus his demeanor changes and temptations start to kick in, wanting recognition, becoming more assertive but reckless, needlessly and harshly calling out Star Swirl. Though he does recover enough to help the princesses, this does set the stage for the young scholar's events in Shadowplay, to take each of the hero's items and become one of them. As for the Pony of Shadows himself, I really don't have much to say other than exposition dumps ahoy. Though it was clever to have him remember Rockhoof as the only one he misses, again calling back to their mentor bond. And since they're one and the same, it was also clever how Stygian found the princesses by controlling the creatures of that world. Also, the Pony of Shadows looks badass, especially drawn in black and green flames combined with its jagged mouth, makes him pretty intimidating. My last bit of criticism, knowing the Pillars adventures leading up to Shadowplay, this kind of paints the original six in a kind of worse light. They were all great friends, saving the town and the princesses, and he takes their items, admittedly against their will, but they cast out Stygian, not letting the guy get a word, and even though they know how timid he usually is, and the rest is history. I've already covered Shadowplay enough if you want to see that, but anyway, that about wraps up the Legends of Magic series. Overall, despite a few problems here and there, the story from the individual legends to Stygian presented an engaging and fun story with a lot of great action scenes, showing off just how amazing the original six were. Alright guys, that's it for today. Until next time, MC out!